Your body feels what you pretend not to observe. It silently carries everything your mind tries to hide from itself. Sometimes you feel a tiredness that doesn't make sense, an inexplicable urge to isolate yourself, as if the world outside is too loud for your sensitivity. Other times your body seems to vibrate. Sudden chills, tension that appears out of nowhere, a lump in your throat without any clear reason. And maybe you've thought it's just stress or accumulated exhaustion. But what if, in truth, it's your awakening trying to reach you? What few realize is that the physical body is a direct reflection of how you observe reality. We're not just talking about seeing with your eyes, but the quality of your presence, your vibration, your intention. The way you observe the world, yourself, and your emotions creates a field. And that field vibrates. And when that vibration conflicts with the truth of your soul, your body feels it. Today, you're going to discover that these physical signals are not random. They are the beginning of a deep communication between you and your consciousness. They are silent calls, trying to remind you that something greater is trying to emerge. That when you shift the quality of your observation, your body responds, and responds with truth. Because the body doesn't lie. It simply expresses what you're already ready to feel. The body is an extension of observation. The body is more than flesh, bone, and functioning cells. It's an intelligent, sensitive, vibrational field, a visible expression of what happens in the invisible part of your consciousness. It feels what your mind silently thinks. It translates into form what you observe in the subtle realm of existence. Every sensation, every impulse, every discomfort or relief is a direct response to the way you are observing reality. The greatest illusion we were taught to believe is that the body reacts only to the physical world, to what we eat, how much we sleep, the environment around us. Of course, these factors matter. But something deeper is happening. The true origin of many physical sensations lies in how you interpret what you're living, where you focus your attention, the energy you feed with your thoughts. Every observation carries a vibration. When you look at life with fear, your body contracts. When you look with guilt, it feels heavy. When you try to deny what you feel, it closes off. Because your perception is like a laser beam of energy. Wherever it touches, something is activated. And the body, always in communication with that field, translates whatever is being emitted. Likewise, when you observe with acceptance, the body relaxes. When you allow yourself to feel what is present without running or judging, the body opens. It understands the language of presence. It responds to coherence. It doesn't matter what's happening externally. If your observation is anchored in inner truth, the body feels it as safety, as healing. That's why you often feel physical discomforts without an apparent cause, because it's not what's happening outside that's weighing on you. It's the way you're observing. It's the fear that takes hold when you try to control what you can't. It's the anxiety created by avoiding what needs to be felt. It's the constant denial of parts of yourself that are just asking for care. Your observation is a vibrational lens that shapes what the body feels. And that observation is never neutral. It's always feeding a frequency. That's why when you sustain thoughts full of judgment, comparison, or self-sabotage, the body translates that vibration into tension, fatigue, or imbalance. It's showing, with sincerity, what your mind prefers to hide. And what's most profound is that your body doesn't need to intellectually understand what's happening to respond. It's the messenger of your energy, not your logic. The mind can deny, justify, distract, but the body feels. And that's where it becomes a sacred tool of awakening, because it has no filters. It reveals what is. So start to notice. How have you been observing life lately? With what kind of energy do you look at yourself when you wake up? How do you internally react to the small events of your day? These observations, even subtle ones, are shaping the state of your body right now. Physical signs of energetic resistance. The body speaks, and when you don't listen with awareness, it screams through symptoms. Every pain, every tension, every recurring sensation that shows up without clear cause is actually a sign of your vibrational field entering resistance. It's energy trying to flow, but being blocked by a misaligned mode of observation. It's as if there's a mismatch between what your soul knows and what your mind allows you to see, and the body becomes the channel where that dissonance appears. There are moments when you feel tightness in your chest for no reason. Other times, your mind is exhausted even after hours of rest. Your body feels heavy, as if it's trying to carry an invisible weight. And you try to understand, is it stress? Am I getting sick? But nothing explains it, because what's happening isn't physical, it's vibrational. It's your field trying to adjust the flow of energy that you yourself are blocking with the way you observe life. When you avoid facing an emotion that needs to be felt, it doesn't disappear. It moves into your body. When you keep putting yourself in environments or patterns that no longer resonate with your truth, your body reacts, sometimes with a mild recurring headache, other times with a strange feeling in your stomach, shoulder tension, or fatigue that doesn't improve with sleep. It's like the body is saying, "You're pretending not to feel it, but I feel it for you." These physical signs are codes, silent languages the body uses to call you back to your center. They are not problems to be fought. They are messages to be decoded, because behind every discomfort, there's essential information being offered. Something needs to be seen with more truth. Something within you is waiting for presence. Energetic resistance doesn't arise from what happens outside. It's born from the unwillingness to feel, to see, from the fear of touching internal parts that are uncomfortable, but that also carry healing. It's like a river of energy trying to run freely, but constantly being dammed by judgments, denials, limiting beliefs. And the body connected to this river suffers the pressure of the dammed waters. That's why you can be in silence and still feel inner chaos. You can be alone in a calm place and still feel your body on high alert. Because the body is reacting to what you are observing on the subtle level, to the stories you mentally repeat, to the fears you feed, to the guilt you carry as if they were unchangeable truths. All of this vibrates, all of it affects you. Energy wants to move, it wants to circulate, release, expand. And every time you allow yourself to honestly observe what you once avoided, it finds a way through. But as long as you pretend everything's fine, as long as you ignore the signs, the body will keep calling. It will continue creating sensations, symptoms, and physical patterns to try to reconnect you with what's been forgotten. The path to liberation begins with listening, not just with your mind, but with your body. It is the radar of your consciousness. When something vibrates out of alignment, it feels it before you understand. When something is trying to emerge, it pulses louder. It's not punishing you. It's guiding you. It's saying, look, feel, shine light. Because what you feel in your body is not the end. It's the beginning of a call. And every energetic resistance, no matter how uncomfortable, is just the signal that a new frequency is waiting to be integrated. Your body doesn't want to limit you. It wants to set you free. When observation changes, the body awakens. Something extraordinary begins to happen when you change the way you observe. Not in a superficial way, trying to force positive thoughts or ignore what you feel. But when the change comes from within, when your presence becomes sincere, and you finally face, with honesty, what you've been avoiding. In that instant, even without words, the body responds, because it has always been waiting for this moment of reconnection. Transformation doesn't begin with logic. It begins with the gaze, the kind of gaze that releases judgment and opens to feeling. The one that doesn't try to control the emotion, but surrenders to the wisdom of the present moment. When this new way of observing settles in, it's as if the energy starts to reorganize. Tension dissolves, flow returns, and the body, which once screamed, now begins to whisper peace. You notice this in small signs. Suddenly, a shiver arises without reason, not as a warning, but as a reminder that something greater is happening. A gentle chill on the neck, a subtle vibration across the skin. It's energy moving again, finding its path through a field that was once blocked. You're not becoming strange, you're becoming sensitive. You're waking up. Sometimes tears come without a cause. It's not sadness, it's release. It's as if the body is dissolving old memories, unprocessed pain, emotions that waited years for this space of acceptance. You don't need to understand, just allow. Because in that moment, your body is doing what it's always known how to do. Release what no longer belongs and anchor what is ready to enter. Other times you feel your chest expand, as if air flows better, as if the core of your being opens. That opening isn't just physical, it's energetic, a clear sign that your observation is finally aligned with your essence. The body recognizes truth, and when it arrives, it surrenders. It relaxes, it vibrates. The silence that once felt empty now holds a nearly living presence. You sit and feel peace for no reason, a state of presence that requires no effort, no explanation. The body rests in that space as if to say, here I can exist without tension, because here I am being seen in truth. This shift in observation doesn't require grand rituals. It doesn't demand perfection. It is born in the moment you choose to look at yourself honestly. When you stop fighting what you feel and begin to listen to what it wants to show you. In that moment, the energetic field opens, and the body, part of that field, awakens. Liberation doesn't begin in the mind. It begins in the body when the gaze shifts, because the body is the first to feel when there is coherence. It is the thermometer of your vibrational integrity. And when you begin to observe with presence, it understands it is safe. It understands it can stop resisting. And so it begins to heal. You don't have to force this change. Just hold a new internal space, a space where fear can be welcomed, where pain can be felt without judgment, where truth can be lived without haste. In that space, the body blooms. It awakens from emotional anesthesia. It reconnects with its natural state, balance. The body doesn't resist vibrational truth. There is a quiet wisdom that lives within the body, an intelligence that needs no words, no theories, no explanations to recognize what is true. It's a kind of vibrational yes, a subtle assent that happens when what you think, feel, and emit aligns with what your soul already knows. In this state, the body doesn't fight, harden, or freeze. It opens, it breathes, it trusts. Vibrational truth is not an idea, it's a frequency, and the body recognizes it instantly. Even if the mind resists or rationalizes, the body feels the difference between what's forced and what's authentic. When you pretend to be okay but are falling apart inside, the body responds with symptoms. When you say you've forgiven, but still carry resentment, it bears that weight as tension, pain, fatigue. But when you finally allow yourself to be honest, when you drop the inner mask, when you look at yourself without the filters of who you should be, the body relaxes, not because everything is instantly resolved, but because resistance has dissolved. And where there is no resistance, energy flows again. You can feel this almost like a release. The breath changes, the chest expands, shoulders drop, the face softens. It's as if the body, long in a state of alert, has received permission to simply be. And that permission is only possible when you align with the truth of the present moment, even when it brings discomfort, because the body doesn't require you to be okay. It only needs you to be real. The great contradiction of being human is trying to deceive yourself with ideas that don't resonate with your soul, pretending something doesn't bother you, denying pain to appear strong, repressing emotion to stay in control. But the body doesn't participate in those lies. It feels every falsehood, and it reacts with precision, not to punish you, but to alert you. There is no coherence here. Vibrational coherence is the state in which mind, heart, and body speak the same language. It's not the absence of conflict, but sincere presence before what is. When you enter that state, even if emotions are intense, the body responds gently, because what it resists isn't the emotion itself, but its repression. Not the pain, but its denial. That's why the more you try to please, to meet expectations, to appear right to others, or even to your own mental standards, the more the body tightens. It was not made to carry personas. It was made to express presence. It exists to be a channel of consciousness, not armor for the ego. You've likely felt this in moments of deep truth, perhaps in admitting something difficult, perhaps in allowing yourself to cry without resistance, perhaps in saying something you held inside for years. In those moments, even in vulnerability, the body finds relief, because truth, once accepted, heals. And this applies to all layers of existence. When you align vibrationally with who you are, with your essence, with your most authentic feeling, the body finds no reason to resist. It stops defending. It becomes an extension of life's flow. It becomes the temple of your awakened consciousness. How to listen to your body as a spiritual tool. The body is not just a biological structure. It is a sacred instrument, a sensitive sensor that captures, stores, and energetically manifests everything your consciousness has not yet integrated. And when you begin to listen to it, not merely as a physical organism, but as a spiritual tool, a new reality is revealed. A reality in which the body stops being a burden and becomes an oracle. A direct channel between your soul and your human experience. But listening to the body is not the same as analyzing it. It's not about decoding symptoms as medical puzzles, but about feeling the messages behind the sensations. About opening yourself to an inner dialogue where each pain, tightness, and discomfort carries a question. What within me is trying to emerge? The body never creates a symptom without purpose. It is extremely faithful to the energy you sustain, and the more present you are, the more it becomes your guide. This is where the true use of the body as a spiritual tool begins, in conscious, judgment-free observation. When something arises, a sudden pain, a persistent discomfort, an emotion manifesting physically, the usual reaction is to get rid of it, to seek distraction, relief, explanation. But the invitation from awareness is different, to be present with what shows up, to stay, to feel, to listen. True listening is born from not trying to immediately change what's being felt, because most of the time, the discomfort is only the messenger. And if you reject it, you also reject the message. But when you approach with loving curiosity, the body responds. It opens. It reveals what lies beneath the surface. Sometimes what seemed like physical pain is simply the buildup of denied emotions. Other times, deep fatigue reflects the constant attempt to uphold appearances that no longer align with who you are. This listening happens in silence. Through mindful attention, you turn inward and gently ask, what am I avoiding seeing right now? And then, without rushing for answers, you feel. You allow the body to speak its own language. You stay there. No hurry, no resistance. This attitude alone is already healing, because the body needs space to release. It needs acceptance to trust. It needs presence to deliver what's been withheld. When you begin to listen to the body in this way, it stops being a battlefield and becomes your ally in spiritual expansion. You begin to realize that many symptoms are actually portals, subtle invitations to return to your essence. And the more you accept what you feel, the clearer the messages become. You feel through the body when you're in the right place. You feel when a decision resonates. You feel when something or someone is not aligned with your truth. This body intelligence is natural, but it's been muted by a culture that taught us to distrust feelings and rely solely on logic. That's why restoring the body as a spiritual tool requires relearning. It requires slowing down, breathing, observing. It requires compassion for what arises and courage to feel what has been ignored for too long. The most beautiful part is that over time, the body becomes a field of vibrational confirmation. It shows you without doubt when you are aligning. It vibrates in expansion. It pulses with lightness. It communicates clearly. Because the language of spirit, when decoded by the body, is always simple. Presence, truth, freedom. And then, every time something hurts, you won't run away. You'll lean in to listen, because you'll know. There, in that specific point, something in your soul is trying to emerge. Something that, once felt with love, can finally be released. And that's how the body transforms from prison to portal, from resistance to channel, from matter to spirit. True observation heals the field. Healing is not a process that begins in the body, it begins in the field. And the field is shaped by the quality of your observation. The way you look at yourself, your emotions, and the reality around you is what organizes or disorganizes the frequency you emit. And that frequency is everything. It determines what you attract, what you feel, and most of all, how your body responds. When your observation is fragmented, critical, controlling, or fear-based, the field contracts. The energy becomes dense, heavy, circular. You feel like you're fighting against life, even without knowing why. Everything feels like effort. Emotions get confusing. The body responds with fatigue, tension, insomnia. And the mind, trying to make sense of it, creates even more resistance. But all of this is not punishment, it's signal. A direct reflection of how you're relating to what you feel. On the other hand, when observation becomes true, when you start to look at your experience with authenticity and presence, the field begins to reorganize. Vibrational healing begins right at that moment. When you stop fighting what is, when you stop trying to fix everything and simply observe with surrender, something deep begins to dissolve. Because what fed the conflict wasn't the pain itself, it was its denial. It was the constant attempt to resist what only wanted to be felt. Observing with truth is an act of surrender. It means abandoning the role of judge, releasing the need to understand everything, and simply allowing yourself to be present with what arises. It's recognizing that sometimes healing doesn't come from doing, it comes from stopping interference, stopping escape, stopping the labeling of your feelings. And in that inner stillness, something realigns. The field begins to vibrate differently, lighter, more fluid, more whole. The body feels this. It responds with peace, with relief, with a quietness that can't quite be explained, because it too was tired of holding so much internal noise. The mind may have believed for a long time that it needed control in order to survive, but the soul always knew. True healing happens when there is surrender, and surrender begins in observation. That's why you don't need to change your body or fight your thoughts. What needs to change is what you feed with your attention, what you choose to observe each day, where you direct your awareness. Because observation is an energetic lens, and anything observed with presence and acceptance begins to transform. Not because you force the transformation, but because you allowed the energy to return to its natural flow. Because you stopped imprisoning it with fear, guilt, or judgment. Because you understood that the discomfort only wanted to be welcome. And when that happens, the field expands. Energy reorganizes, the body relaxes, the mind quiets, and the spirit expresses itself more clearly. To observe with truth is, at its core, an act of love. A deep recognition that everything you feel has a place, that nothing needs to be exiled or hidden, that even pain has its role, its timing, its wisdom, and that instead of being fought, it can be heard until it naturally dissolves, simply because it was understood. When this becomes a habit, healing is no longer a goal. It becomes a natural state. You no longer need to chase balance, you become balance. Because you've learned to hold the only thing that truly transforms, conscious presence, living observation, a gaze that heals, not by changing what it sees, but by welcoming what is, without resistance. We've reached the end of our journey, but perhaps for you this is only the beginning of a new way of perceiving yourself, of feeling, of observing. Today you've remembered something essential. Your body has never been against you. It has always been the silent messenger of your observation. Every tension, every shiver, every silence your body asks for is a call to turn inward with truth. The challenge now is simple and deep. When the body speaks, don't fight, don't flee, don't label, just observe, feel, allow. Because what you call a symptom may actually be your awakening approaching. Reality changes when the body relaxes, and the body relaxes when the observer awakens. May this awakening continue in you, gentle, present, constant, like a return to what has always been yours, the peace of being whole.